Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and also some related issues, inshallah. So all brothers are requested to stay behind, inshallah. We'll start straight away, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والسابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه وأعد لهم جنات تجري تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ذلك هو الفوز العظيم صدق الله العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تبارك وتعالى في سورة البينة رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه ذلك الفوز العظيم وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم خير الناس قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم اهدنا إلى صراطك المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين صدق الله العظيم. So brothers and sisters in Islam, I greet you with Assalamu alaikum first of all. May Allah bless us all for staying behind between the prayers. And let me remind you all of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, it is a long hadith mentioned in it, that when a person stays between one prayer and the other prayer, it is like that he is guarding the hudud, the boundaries of the Islamic State, of the proper Islamic State. This is the reward you get when you stay between Maghrib and Isha, Asr and Maghrib, Dhuhr and Asr, and Fajr and Dhuhr is a long ask, but if you do it for that, you will get a reward, inshallah. So really it's a great benefit. Just coming to the masjid is a benefit, and then when you learn something new, inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will also be a benefit for all of us. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this coming to the masjid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The best of places that you could be on a Saturday night is in the masjid. We could be anywhere else. The youngsters could be outside, and protect them. But this is really one of the best places that we should try to encourage ourselves first of all, and also our youngsters, our families to come as much as we can, inshallah. So today the topic which I have chosen, and it is one of many weeks which we will cover, inshallah, the lives of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So before we start, we need to ask ourselves, who are the companions? And you may ask, why have you chosen their lives instead of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It's a valid question you may ask. The life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best example for all of us, without doubt. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Our role model is none but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we have his companions, and his companions are described by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, and the best of people are my companions. خَيْرُ النَّاسِ قَرْنِ, those who live in my qarn, meaning the century which followed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ. So all the companions, for us, they have a great importance in our seerah, in our history, and when it comes to learning of the deen, they hold a great importance in our eyes, and they are all to us full of respect. We look up to them, to their lives, and how they lived their lives is really an exemplary role model for all of us. So the companion series will run, inshallah ta'ala, for about 5 to 6 weeks. We are entering the month of Muharram al-Haram. We will have a talk on this month at the end of this month as well, inshallah, at the end of September. But before that, I will prepare the ground for the actual talk which will be given in September, the end of September. And there are many things we can cover in the month of Muharram al-Haram. It is our first month of the year. I went over some of the advices in my bayan, of English bayan. But there are many things which we can discuss about this month of Muharram al-Haram. So inshallah we'll start off with, because I started off the series with the life of Hazrat Uthman ibn Affan a few weeks ago. On the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, which was about 10 days ago, we covered his life in very, very general terms, how he lived his life, how he was as a leader of the Muslims, and how did he attain martyrdom. I will not say he was killed, I will say he attained martyrdom, because this was something Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam predicted for Hadrat Uthman ibn Affan. And his life is full of examples for all of us. We went through his seerah. But today I'm not going to go back and talk about him because something you've already done. But today we will talk about the fourth caliph of the Muslims, Hadrat Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. Because he plays a very important role for us as Muslims. He has many great attributes. He's an example in courage. He was named Asad by his father. And also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through his Prophet described him as Asadullah wa Asadur Rasuli. He's the lion. That's referring to his courage, how much courage he had as a companion, as a Sahaba. We will go through his lineage, his birth, and I don't think I'll be able to cover everything, but I'll cover as much as I can in the next 20 to 30 minutes, inshallah ta'ala. First of all, he was born before the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Some say 10 years, some say 15 years. He was a young boy when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam he received the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is known that he was the first young person to become Muslim. He was the first young boy to become Muslim. The first lady was Hazrat, anyone remember? Khadija, and the second, the man? Abu Bakr, yeah, and then Ali radiallahu anhu was the first youngster to become Muslim. At an early age, he became Muslim because he was under the guardianship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abu Talib, his father, faced some difficulties at the time, and he was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be looked after in his house. So he was very close to him. No doubt that Ali Karamallah Wajhu was very close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was also related to him through his father's side, through the paternal. He was his son of his paternal uncle. So Hazrat Ali's father and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's father were brothers. First, close blood brothers. They were not brothers from rida'a or from step brothers. They were first brothers. But as we know the story, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was looked after by Abu Talib as well. So this is really how close the two were at the time. And his acceptance really was at an early stage, helped him both in the guidance and his understanding of Islam, and also later on in his leadership skills as well. He was one of the few people who had actually learned how to read and write out of the Sahaba. He was one of the many few who actually could read and write, and he was an intelligent person. He was a faqih of his time. When you look at his rulings, his injunctions, they're exemplary for all of us. And I will go through some of them in his biography, that how he actually came to become a ruler, a leader of the Muslim. In Islam you have 5 Khalifa which are agreed upon by Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and I will explain to you very, very briefly what Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah means, because this is something time and time again we get confused with. So 5, Amir al-Mu'mineen was the first one, was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, Uthman ibn Affan, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and the 5th one which we agree upon is his son, Imam Hassan ibn Ali Abi Talib. So this is the 5 agreed upon Khalifatul Rashida, which we were called. After that, what happened was that, as prophesied by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we had what is called mulkiyah, kingship. So the father leaves the rulership to his son, and that carried on throughout history, and is still carrying on up till now. This is something which we shouldn't feel, it shouldn't hinder us from the straight path, and it shouldn't really put any doubts in our minds, because this is something the Prophet ﷺ prophesied the Khalifa al-Rashida will stay for 30 years after his death, and that is what happened. 30 years. After 30 years, we see straight away the Khalifa, the Caliph moves from Imam Hassan to Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala. We say radiallahu ta'ala because he was a Sahaba as well. So Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, basically what we comprise is of all those groups within the Muslim creed who believe on 3 things. One is the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the main sort of source of knowledge and also source of guidance, with the Jama'ah of the Sahaba. So the last bit which you see about Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So Ahlul Quran was Sunnah wal Jama'ah Ashabi Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is what he means. So it means those agreed upon tenets by the all the Sahaba, not just some. We don't just pick and choose. We encompass all the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala. So this is what it means in a nutshell. But there's many other sub-topics which we can go to in some other time, inshallah ta'ala. And to us they are all rightly guided as well. All the Sahaba for us are rightly guided companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Tabi'een are those that followed them after the next century, and the Tabi'een are those who follow them after the 3rd century. So that's one thing. The second thing I would like to just clarify is here that we respect not just the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, the Tabi'een, but also we respect the mothers of the believers. All of them, the wives of the believers to us are honoured, they're respected, and we do not even dare to say, to even think bad against them is a sin. Even to think bad against the Ummahat al-Mu'mineen is a sin. So this is something we need to keep in mind, that the mothers of the believers, all of them are sacred for us as well. When we come to the life of Uthman ibn Affan, and when he was martyred, and when Ali ibn Abi Talib was chosen to be the leader of the Muslims, this is when really the times of fitna had started. After the death and the martyrdom of Uthman ibn Affan, this is where you see the fitans, they started, the trials and tribulations in the Ummah started. And like I said before, this is something we shouldn't be scared of, we shouldn't deny, it's something we should really actually study, go into the history books and see what the historians say about these trials and tribulations, what we can learn from it now living in this century, 2018, what we can learn about what happened in 1400 years ago, what happened in those blessed lands. So we should take an example from them, from their early life. His name, he was given the name Harbi by his father, which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam straight away told him this name is not Islamic name. Harbi means somebody who's actually a warmonger, somebody who's always fighting, somebody who likes to fight. So this is something that the Prophet straight away changed his name to Ali. And this was a name was given to him by the Prophet ﷺ himself. And as we know, his kunya was Abu Hassan, as his first son was called Hassan. And this is really something which is normal within the Arabs. They give you the kunya of the eldest son, Abu Hassan. His other titles are Amir al-Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful. Now, this is a title which is given to all the leaders of the Muslims at that time. I mentioned his birth. Some say it's 15 years, some say it's 10 years. But really the most correct view is that he was born 10 years before the mission, before the Risala of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam began. And he was quite a young person when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam received the Nubuwwah. And his Islam, how he accepted Islam is an interesting narration, because he went to his father after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was praying salat with Abu Bakr, and Ali, there was a small child, he came and he saw them praying, and he asked them, what are you doing, oh my cousin? And he said, well, we are praying to the one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I invite you to come and join us as well. And he said, let me go and ask my uncle. He didn't went to uncle of Rasulullah, which is the father of Ali. So he went back, but he didn't ask his father, because Rasulullah told him, if you ask your father, then people are going to find out. So keep it quiet until you actually decide that you're going to become a Muslim, and then you can tell your father afterwards. So this is what he did. He didn't tell his father, and he kept it quiet up to the point when he became he became Muslim, and even then he kept it quiet from his father. And his father later on found out later on, after a few others of the companions had become Muslim. Also, there's a narration that the Prophet ﷺ, when Abu Talib passed away, Ali radiallahu anhu did his janazah. He did his burial, not the Islamic janazah, but how the Arabs used to bury the dead. He did this for his father. He was commanded by the Prophet ﷺ to do that. And go and prepare your father, even though he's not a Muslim. And we all know the famous narration that the Prophet ﷺ said at the deathbed of Abu Talib, that say the Shahada, say the Shahada. And in front of him was Abbas and Hamza, and they were both mushrik. He said, I cannot go against my forefathers. I cannot say something which will upset my tribe. The Prophet said to him, say Shahada, so that on the day of judgment I can do intercession. I can make intercession for you, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we all know that he did not take shahada before he died. And this is something which hurt the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also his son Ali ibn Abi Talib was also upset, was quite saddened of the death, and also that he didn't take shahada. This is something which Allah tells us clearly in the Quran, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. And this ayah came down straight away after the Prophet ﷺ continuously was asking for istighfar, for forgiveness for his uncle. Allah Ta'ala sent the ayah straight away, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Verily, O you Prophet ﷺ, you do not guide who you will, but Allah guides whomsoever He wills. Very, very important thing when we give da'wah to the non-Muslims. Sometimes we get frustrated that, why is this guy not becoming Muslim? Why is this sister not becoming Muslim? We shouldn't really say that. We should always have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one that controls the heart. There is nothing that controls the heart scientifically, but it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His powers. He guides whomsoever He wills, and He leads astray whomsoever He wills as well. Very, very important fact. We shouldn't forget. This is really a great lesson at the time of the death of Abu Talib, when he was faced with this dialogue with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So his early life, we all know from his early life, he was really a courageous person. So he was given the name for this reason. He was very courageous. He married the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fatima to Zahra. So she is the daughter from Khadija. So we all know he married, and they had children, and all of the two children they had was the two sons, Hassan and Al-Husayn, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum. Two sons which he had. After later on, when the Islam started to spread within Mecca, the time for Hijrah came. The time for these were the days just before Muharram, Safar and Rajab. These are all Safar and then Hijjah, then Qaidah. These were all the months which the preparation had taken place for Hijrah, and the arrival in Medina was in the month of Muharram, on the Friday, on the month of Muharram. But the preparation had taken place well beforehand. The Prophet ﷺ had prepared his companions. He had sent them to Medina beforehand, but he stayed behind with Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala and Ali karamallahu wajh. So these three people stayed behind. And we all know the story when Ali was chosen to stay in Mecca for two reasons. One was to make sure that the Quraysh have no suspicion about the departure of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also another very, very important thing, that Ali was given the amana, the trust. Don't forget, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had kept money, had kept letters, on behalf of people, so they had to be given back. He wasn't just going to, leave Mecca and take all their money, loot their money. They're mushrik. I'm not going to pay them back. No, he said, I'm going to go. He was the Prophet of Allah, and he said, I'm going to leave this amana with Ali to disperse the following year. This is what happened when they got up in the morning. They seen Ali in the bed of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, covered with a green cloak, and he was the one who actually gave the trust back to them. And his hijrah was open. He declared that I am going to go tomorrow tomorrow morning to Medina, and if anybody wants to stop me, then please come. And nobody's going to come up to stop him, because he was known to be a fighter, a courageous person in his Islam as well. So he has a special status. Verily, all the Ahlul Bayt. Now I'm going to have to describe the Ahlul Bayt to you as well now, because again, this is something which we hear a lot, but we do not know what the Ahlul Bayt encompass. The Ahlul Bayt, first of all, encompasses the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, all of them, according to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It encompasses Fatima to Zahra, her sons, her daughters, Ali karamallahu wajhu, and all the family members of Rasulullah ﷺ are encompassed as Ahlul Bayt, and they have a special maqam, special status, which is related in Surah Al-Ahzab. The Prophet ﷺ says, Allah says that we have purified you from any wrongdoing, O Ahlul Bayt. This encompasses all of them. There is a misconception that it doesn't include the wives, but this is really something we should keep in mind, that the wives are the closest to the Prophet ﷺ, followed by the sons and the daughters. And they have a special status which I will quickly describe to you, that what do the Ahlul Bayt nowadays, how we should look at them and how we should treat them. For them really there is no zakah, But it's upon the ruler at the time to provide them with an income, with a basic expenditure. This is upon the rulers. And up to now, in some countries, they do actually pay. If you are known to be a Sayyid Ahlul Bayt, they do pay you a basic sort of salary, basic wage, if you want to call it, from the Bayt al-Mal. And again, there was no inheritance from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for his family. It is narrated by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu that he says, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we are not to be inherited from, i.e. the Ahlul Bayt. What we leave behind is sadaqah, is charity, and whatever was left behind by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given to the Bayt al-Mal as charity. And they are entitled to 1/5 of the ghanima, the war spoils, the booty. This is something which, if it happens, there is a war, and there's any spoils left behind, they are entitled to 1/5. So they have many rights. Also, when we send the durood salam upon the Prophet ﷺ, we also send salam on the family. وَعَلَىٰ آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ. So they are also, this is the right upon us, that when we send the durood salam, we send durood salam upon the family of Rasulullah ﷺ. So we have a special connection to them. Do not belittle their maqam. And this is narrated by a hadith by Zayd ibn Arqam radiallahu anhu. He said, the Prophet ﷺ tells us, giving us nasiha, that I remind you of Allah with regard to the people of my household. I remind you of Allah with regards to the people of my household, and I remind you of Allah with regards to the people of my household. This is how much importance, the Prophet ﷺ, how much love he had for all his family members, especially his grandsons. We all know the various narrations that happened when they used to come and he was giving a dars or a reminder. He would firstly get hold of them, make them sit on his lap. If he was giving a khutbah, a Jummah khutbah, they would come, he would call them and make them sit on his lap. And many narrations regarding the two grandsons of Rasulullah ﷺ are there. They're in the books. You just need to pick them up and read them. What was the prophecy of Rasulullah ﷺ, which we will go through in its right time, because now we are talking about Ali ibn Abi Talib, and at one day we will talk about the grandsons of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So after we're going to go skip now a few years. We're going to go up to the death, the demise, the returning back of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his Lord. When this happened, there were many things that happened. But very, very briefly, I would just want to describe the sequence of events. This will make it clear for you in your mind that how things unfolded after the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We need to go back and look at what happened when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned to his Lord in Medina. We all know the narration of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that he was away when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, but Umar radiallahu anhu was present, and he was shell-shocked. He was shell-shocked. And the ayah which I'm going to recite in a bit is really an ayah which brought the Sahaba together after this initial news of the death. And because we all know death is something huge, but the death of the Prophet ﷺ was the biggest, the saddest day for the whole Muslim. Up to now, even when you talk about it, it brings, that grief and what that pain, what they were going through. It reminds you of how much of a shock, how much of a how much of a problem it became after the death of Rasul. Because when the leader is there, everything is functioning nicely. The salawats are done. There is no issue. There's no problem. But as soon as the leader, the guide disappears, we all know the problems start to arise. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came back and he found out that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has gone back to his Lord Jalla wa Ala. So he came to the house of to the hujra of Aisha radiallahu anhu. That's where he passed away. And he seen him and he kissed his forehead and he said to him, you looked beautiful when you were alive, but you are even more beautiful now that you have gone back to us. So this was really emotion that was going through his mind at that time, and he was repeating the salawats upon him. And then he went back out, because we all know that Umar radiallahu anhu didn't accept the news, and he was still in shell shock, and he said to his peers that he's gone to his Lord just like Musa alayhi salam has gone back to his Lord. Abu Bakr said to him, no, let's call the people, as was the custom, that if there was any big news, big event, they would call people, the caller would go out and call people to the masjid, and they would come. This is what happened. They came, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu stood up he made a small like announcement or a small not a khutbah but more just an announcement to the people, and he mentioned in that the ayah وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انقلبتم على أعقابكم وَمَنْ يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا وَسَيَجْزِي اللَّهُ الشَّاكِرِينَ. This is really the ayah in Surah Al-Imran, which what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not but just a messenger. Yeah, قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ. We have many messages were sent before you, and if he was to pass away, or would you go back on your heels? Will you go against Islam? Will you become murtad? No. وَمَنْ يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. Even if you do go back, this will not harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way, but it will actually harm yourself. After this ayah was read, Umar radiallahu anhu, he came to his senses and he realized what had happened. He sat down and he said to afterwards that I didn't even up to now this ayah hadn't crossed my mind. They read the Quran all the time, but this ayah, it was as if it wasn't even there in the Quran. This is how much how much it was really a shock to them and to all of them. Radiallahu ta'ala anhu wa arda. And we all know the Khalifa or the Caliphate was given to by obviously the Prophet ﷺ had given Ishara, had given some sort of hints to his companions that after me it will be Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. All the Sahaba at that time agreed upon this. This is something which was agreed upon by the Ansar and the Muhajir, the two main people, the two main camps, if you can call them, but they were leading a camp which was united on Islam, because these people used to, the people in Makkah, Medina used to fight each other before the advent of Islam over petty things. But as soon as Islam came, it brought them together under one platform, under the platform of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is really very, very briefly. I'm skipping so many details, but I just want to come to the point where we discuss before we finish the caliphate, the khilafat of Ali radiallahu anhu. So everything in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar radiallahu anhum, there were many advancements in the Muslim lands, many futuhat happened. But when it came to the caliphate of Uthman ibn Affan, the first 6 years were good, alhamdulillah. The last 6 years, this is when problems started to arise. Problems started to arise amongst the newly reverted Muslims. And we had various sects who came up at that time, who started to appear, which we're not going to discuss here, but I just want to give a very brief description of what led to the ultimate martyrdom of Uthman ibn Affan and Ali radiallahu, because the same thing happened to Ali radiallahu anhu, that he was really he got caught in a situation where the killers of Uthman were not brought to justice. This is basically the nutshell of everything. Yeah, very, very crude. This is what happened, and the people, his family, the Banu Umayyah, were requesting from Ali to bring the killers to justice. Now the problem was that the killers were amongst some of the ranks of Ali radiallahu anhum, and he didn't have the power over them to bring them to justice. Even though deep down he says in many narrations that I wish that I could have brought the killers of Uthman ibn Affan to justice. In many narrations, something which he describes in his life. This carried on, and ultimately it led to his shahada as well, by one of his close associates. Some say he was poisoned, some say he was killed, Allahu alam. But again, you see the sequence of events, the fitans carried on. And they carried on up till the time of Muawiyah, and when his son took over the leadership of the Muslims. This is something we'll discuss in a few weeks' time, inshallah. But today, I'll finish off on some positive points, because I don't want to, paint this picture of all doom and gloom, Because sometimes when you read the books of history, we get depressed. We shouldn't get depressed. These are all things which really makes our iman solid. When you go to the iron master, when he wants to make the iron, he makes sure it goes through fire. Sharpens it with fire. So our hearts need to be sharpened. This is the way it's going to be sharpened. So few quotes, wise quotes. Like I said to him, he was a faqih. This man, this companion, he was intelligent, he was courageous, he was handsome, and he was one of those who came up with many fatwas, many legal rulings, which I will describe very quickly because I'm seeing the time is passing by. And we'll go through his fatwas, and his thinking, how he would think. Some of the quotes which we can dwell upon is that he says in one of his qawls that kindness is one of the best of treasures, and he was a kind person. We know this. We can tell by how he was with the killers. Of Uthman. He knew who the killers were. I mean, he was aware of the killers of Uthman, but he looked with them with kindness. He gave them a chance, to come back. But unfortunately, this was something he wasn't able to achieve. May Allah be pleased with him. He also says in another saying, this is something which you could reflect upon with the times we are living in, and also the times he was living in. Be kind to the one who wrongs you, and you will be safe from his wrongdoing. Be safe to the one who wrongs you, and you'll be safe from his wrongdoing. Very important. Great hikmah, and we get to understand his life, how he lived his life. So humble. He would pray all night. He would go out on. When he was a leader, the Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would actually look to his deputies, make sure they're doing their job properly. He would actually send people to check on them, to their offices, to their masajid, to make sure they're doing their work. And this is really one of the greatness of this Sahaba. The people are sleeping, and I mentioned this last week in the bayan. The people are sleeping, and when they die, they will wake up. Yeah, this is the reality of this dunya, that you are sleeping in this dunya, but when you die, that's when you wake up. This is a qawl of Imam Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. I'll finish off with one more quote, and then inshallah we will finish off, and we'll have just a summary of what we went through. He says that remembering death gives clarity to the mind. Remembering death, and these are some of the quotes which I mentioned in my bayan from his aqwal. Remembering death gives clarity to the mind. So when you don't remember death, you are confused. You do not know where you are going, where you are, and where you've been. You do not know where you're going. You still think you're in like a dream world. Say you're dreaming in this world. So this really, when you remember the death, it will remind you that you are going somewhere. There's a destination ahead of you. And when you go on a travel, you prepare yourself. Naturally, you make sure you have enough food, enough drink. You make sure you have your airfare. I trust that this is all preparation, and the preparation of this life for the hereafter is very basic. You look at your 5 pillars, make sure they are perfect. Any nawafil you do, make sure you be a good person in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is your preparation, and one of the preparations you can do at all times, which will help you a lot, is what I spoke about Friday, is tawbah. This is really a preparation for your death, because when you are clear in your mind, and when you are constantly doing tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are ready. You are ready to face the consequences. Because if you're not ready, then you will be scared. You will be, you'll be thinking, oh, death, it's a horrible thing. It's painful, it's torturous. Yes, it is, but it should be something which you look forward to as a mu'min. Al-mawtu tuhfatun, the maut is actually a gift for the mu'min. It's something we should be looking forward, and this also only can happen when you prepare yourself in this dunya. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity to prepare ourselves for the hereafter in many ways which we can. There are many ways you can prepare yourselves. Just go and look for ways, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide you to the straight path. I just want to finish off with 2 things. One is I mentioned his ministers were the best ministers at his time, and he was a just person. He was adil. He never wronged anyone, and he always looked after his ra'iyah, those who were underneath him. And this really is something, we say that you can't be too nice to people. Sometimes this happens, that you become too nice, and those who have no fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will take advantage of your niceness. And really, but that's something you shouldn't be concerned with. You be nice with them, whether they be good to you or not. This is not your concern. And this wasn't the concern of Uthman ibn Affan or Ali karamallah. They didn't care if these people, rebelled against them, or even if they had any sort of value for their kindness. They didn't care, because they were the Sahaba, the best of generations that followed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Later on, we will cover the topics. The next few weeks after next, we will cover the life of Imam Hassan And Al-Hussein will be covered on in the first week of Muharram al-Haram, maybe between the 5th and the 10th. This is really to commemorate his shahada as well. We'll make sure we cover something of his life. But today really what we can learn from the life of Ali radiallahu ta'ala, that he made it clear to us that this life is temporary. You do not put so much effort in investing so much in this dunya, rather invest in the hereafter. This is what he did. And when he left, he made sure that he left a legacy. People spoke good of him. People looked up to his imamah, his leadership. Even up to now, when we see governments, they really look at the leadership of none but Imam Ali radiallahu anhu. So this is really something we should have clear, that this dunya will soon perish. We have a life of 60, 70, 80 years. Some of us are lucky to live up to 90 years, but eventually you will go back. And really that's something, time and time again, the Prophet ﷺ reminded his Sahaba that do not take this dunya as your ultimate goal, but rather take the akhirah. وَلَدَارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ. So that the abode of the hereafter is good for those who believe and those who have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I think I've said enough for today, but if there's anything which is not clear in your minds about this great leader, please come and I will try to clarify it after the halaqah. If I have made any mistakes, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive me and forgive all of us, because we verily make mistakes. We are human beings, but I have tried to portray this great Imam in the best way, as agreed upon by Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ati, and without any sort of distortion, without any negativity towards this great leader of Islam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to go in the path as the Prophet ﷺ told us, and we can emulate and copy the ways and the lives of the great companions that followed them, radiallahu ta'ala anhum wa arda. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our little ibadah which we do in this world. Or may He put it in the hereafter with great rewards, and also ultimately in the hereafter what we hope for and what we wish for is the Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all Jannatul Firdaus in the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant those who have passed away the highest maqam, the highest status in the hereafter, our parents, our brothers, whoever's passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a Jannah for them in the hereafter. Also may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to come together. Today I was in a meeting, and my teacher, he says to me that really we need to come back to unity. This is what we are missing as an ummah, and really it struck me. The first thing he says to me, I haven't seen him for years, he says to me, Miraj, he goes, ittifaq, he speaks Urdu, he goes, ittifaq. I said, yeah, Sheikh, I know. I said, it's a problem. It's a problem wherever we go, we are divided. Our masajids are divided, we cannot come together on a platform. So this is where we are lacking, and this is something we need to take forward to our youngsters, that irrespective of your differences, the Sahaba had differences, but did they actually, did they not pray behind one another? They prayed behind one another numerous times. So this is something, lesson we need to take, ittifaq, and this is something we need to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to His book, and to the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is something which I will finish upon, because this is something which I gained really from going to see him today. He said, we are really lacking on this point. The Muslims, why have we got no power? Is because we are not together. Not that we haven't got any Muslim countries. We have 52 plus Muslim states. We have not, but we are not together. This is why Allah subhanahu has taken away the blessings that we had when we were jama'ah, when we were together. We were little in numbers, but Allah subhanahu gave us the barakah, gave us the strength, gave that fear in the hearts of the non-Muslims. But something which we will only gain once we come back to the path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us all together on the kalima, and the kalima of the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this hereafter. Whatever effort we make, inshallah, we will be rewarded. We might not see the fruits in our lifetime, but the next generation, they might see better times. And we should always be hopeful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will most definitely bring better times for the Muslim ummah. It is just a matter of time, patience and sacrifice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our little effort. I said what I have said, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us our sins and guide us to the straight path. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. We have some time to take questions. Otherwise